Anna went in a different direction. But I love the fact that, you know, Manny is younger and he's
How much younger is he?
Just a little bit.
He's like 1 year, isn't he?
Like a month or a year or 10 years?
5 years.
It's more than a year.
Oh.
Anyway, it's not about me.
According to the documents, he knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgeries.
It's one of those stories that sounds too wild to be true. A well-respected TV host, a highly paid surgeon, and a lawsuit so massive it puts even the mafia cases to shame. For years, Sunny Hostin built her brand on being the voice of reason, the defender of justice, the unshakable commentator on morality and politics. But now, the very foundation of her seemingly perfect life is being shattered by her own husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, a prominent orthopedic surgeon and the spouse of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, has found himself at the center of a federal RICO lawsuit. And this isn't just any lawsuit. It's a $450 million bombshell accusing over 200 people of insurance fraud, kickbacks, and racketeering on a scale that New York's legal system has rarely seen. Suddenly, the Hostins are no longer just another power couple. They're headline material in the worst possible way. But let's rewind. Before the scandal, Sunny Hostin wasn't just a daytime TV host. She was a legal analyst, a former federal prosecutor, and a woman who built her career around holding others accountable. With a sharp tongue and fierce opinions, she had no issue calling out corruption, injustice, or systemic rot, especially in politics. She carved out a reputation as the righteous voice on The View, never shying away from the tough conversations. So when news broke that her husband was being accused of orchestrating fraudulent medical procedures and receiving kickbacks in return, the irony hit like a ton of bricks. While Sunny was busy calling out others for ethical lapses, her own home was allegedly knee-deep in one of the biggest fraud cases the state had ever seen. At the heart of this scandal is a staggering allegation that Dr. Hostin performed unnecessary surgeries on patients involved in minor traffic accidents, people who should have been prescribed physical therapy or simple rehab, not invasive operations. According to the lawsuit, these patients were often Uber or taxi drivers, people dependent on quick recoveries, desperate for help, and possibly unaware they were being used as pawns in a much larger scheme. The insurance company behind the suit, American Transit, claims it was swindled out of millions by Hostin and a network of doctors, clinics, and hospitals. The accusation that Hostin and others knowingly billed for surgeries that were either unnecessary or never performed at all. And while patients trusted their doctors, the money allegedly flowed from the insurance carriers into the pockets of those orchestrating this medical charade. If true, the scale is mind-blowing. One lawsuit, over 200 defendants, hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, and a RICO charge, typically reserved for criminal organizations and mobsters, looming over it all. But where does that leave Sunny? Here's a woman who has spent years on national television scolding politicians, celebrities, and public figures for their scandals, their lies, their hypocrisy. She's made a name for herself as someone who always knows right from wrong. And now, she's caught in the crossfire of one of the most high-profile fraud cases in recent memory. What makes this even more explosive is her silence. Since the lawsuit became public, Sunny has gone quiet. No statements, no interviews, not even a vague tweet. For a woman who thrives on speaking truth to power, her sudden radio silence speaks volumes. Some see it as a smart legal move. Others, a sign of guilt, or at least complicity. Critics haven't been kind. They've pointed out her past comments, particularly those aimed at political figures accused of wrongdoing, and labeled her a hypocrite. After all, how can someone who lectures America on morality and ethics be unaware of what her husband was allegedly doing? Was she really that oblivious, or just willfully blind? To be fair, Sunny Hostin isn't named in the lawsuit. She hasn't been charged with any crime. But when your spouse is at the center of a $450 million fraud case, the damage isn't limited to legal fallout. There's reputational fallout, financial ruin, and the unrelenting scrutiny of a public that once admired you. Bankruptcy may not be just a legal term, it could soon be a financial reality. And it's not just the tabloids talking. Major outlets like Page Six and the Daily Caller have picked up the story, feeding the frenzy and painting Sunny and Emmanuel as the latest example of fame crashing into scandal. The headlines practically write themselves, from The View to courtroom drama, doctor or con man. sunny side down. Adding to the chaos is the fact that Dr. Hostin has lawyered up. And not just with anyone. He's hired famed attorney Mark Garagos, the same man who's represented everyone, from Michael Jackson to Jussie Smollett. When someone brings in a high-powered defense attorney before charges are even finalized, it's clear they're preparing for war. And this war is going to be ugly. The lawsuit paints a damning picture of a medical system gone rogue. If there's one thing the public hates more than a scandal, it's the appearance of elitism during a scandal. And right now, Sunny Hostin's silence feels less like strategic discretion and more like someone hoping their social status will shield them from consequence. That tactic might work in Hollywood, but in a court of law and the court of public opinion, it's a ticking time bomb. The question now is, how much did Sunny know? Some speculate she had to know something. After all, they shared a home, a life, a bank account. They traveled together, they vacationed. When millions are allegedly flowing in from shady surgeries, it's hard to imagine she never noticed the change in lifestyle, the growing bank balance, or the quiet whispers from the medical community. Then again, perhaps she didn't want to. No. Willful ignorance is often the last line of defense for public figures when things fall apart. I didn't know becomes the shield. I had no idea becomes the script. And while it may work for a short time, it rarely survives the harsh light of investigation. Meanwhile, Dr. Hostin's legal team is digging in. His attorney has labeled the lawsuit as a desperate move by a nearly bankrupt insurance company, AODI classic deflection strategy. According to them, this is just a corporate smear campaign aimed at scaring off legitimate doctors and preserving insurance profits. That's a nice story, but the court documents, the volume of accusations, and the scale of the RICO charge say otherwise. This isn't just a case of 1 or 2 billing errors. This is a comprehensive, detailed claim involving hundreds of surgeries, millions in reimbursements, and a pattern of behavior that investigators say points to an intentional fraud operation. And if that's not enough, there's the RICO charge itself. For those unfamiliar, RICO, short for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, was designed to take down organized crime. It's not thrown around lightly. If prosecutors are using it here, they believe the fraudulent actions were not isolated incidents, but part of a coordinated effort, an enterprise built to deceive, profit, and protect those involved. It's the kind of accusation that shatters careers. The optics are brutal. While Sunny Hostin sits in a studio debating morality and politics, her husband is accused of orchestrating a white-collar crime ring that siphoned money from insurance companies by manipulating the healthcare system. It's hard to maintain credibility when your own household is being portrayed as ground zero for corruption. And this isn't just a blow to Sunny's reputation, it's a financial threat too. Legal battles of this scale are expensive, very expensive. Even for a wealthy couple, the legal fees, settlements, potential fines, and career damage can lead to serious financial instability. Bankruptcy, once unthinkable, is now whispered about in the tabloids. The phrase, living above your means, hits different when you're fighting a $450 million case. There's also the looming threat of job loss. Public pressure is growing, and media watchdogs are already questioning whether Sunny's presence on The View sends the wrong message. Should someone so close to such a massive fraud case be allowed to stay on air, unchallenged? Should a woman who's built her image on moral superiority be allowed to skip accountability? Networks don't like scandals that tarnish their brand. And if this legal nightmare drags on, as RICO cases often do, it may only be a matter of time before producers are forced to reevaluate her role. Her critics would call it justice. Her fans might call it a witch hunt. But one thing's certain, the longer this stays in the headlines, the worse it gets for Sunny Hostin. And the headlines aren't going anywhere. Every new detail that emerges adds fuel to the fire. Allegations that surgeries were unnecessary, claims that medical documentation was forged, reports of internal memos revealing coordinated schemes, anonymous tips from former employees who knew something wasn't right. It's not just one piece of evidence, it's an avalanche. And here's where the real tragedy lies. If these accusations are true, then innocent people, patients, were exploited. People who trusted their doctor. People who believed they were getting care. People who thought surgery was the only way to heal. If Dr. Hostin did what prosecutors claim, then he didn't just steal money, he stole trust. And that's not something you can just pay back. So what now? The court process will grind forward, slowly but relentlessly. Depositions, hearings, evidence review, media coverage. And all the while, Sunny will have to decide, does she continue business as usual, sipping coffee on The View, or does she confront the scandal head-on? So far, she's chosen to say nothing, to act like nothing's changed. But everything has. This case is more than just a tabloid scandal. It's a mirror, reflecting the cracks in the healthcare system, the fragility of public personas, and the fine line between success and disgrace. There's also a deeper conversation lurking beneath it all, about who gets held accountable in America, about how privilege can mask corruption, about how media figures are allowed to pass judgment until their own closets burst open. Sunny Hostin built her brand on truth-telling. Now, the truth may be coming for her. Will she survive this storm? Maybe. Stranger things have happened in Hollywood, but even if she walks away legally unscathed, the damage has been done. The public has seen behind the curtain. And what they saw wasn't the polished commentator in pearls. It was a woman whose world is teetering on the edge of collapse.